There is so much confusion going on. Antitrust. The Sherman Act. Doesn't matter. It's not the Bruce Sherman Act from the Marlins. It's not the John Sherman Act from the Indians. That's not their name anymore, is it, Coca? From the Cleveland baseball team. The Antitrust Act is federal legislation that basically says no monopolies. That's not fair to the consumer. Of course, I'm not sure they're very focused on how I get my cable or Wi-Fi. Yeah, I got 3 choices. One's crap, one's crappier, and one you can't reach if you sit on hold for 2.5 hours. Press 2 if you'd like to speak to a representative. Thank you. But before we let you speak to a representative, please let me know your zip code. Then, if you don't mind, what's your problem? Press 1 if you can't hear this. Press 2 if you can't see us. Please hold for representative. The approximate hold time is deep, dun dun. Hello, 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 and then the music stops, and you think you're going to get someone live, and then do. Can't we find someone who's live, please? Before we can help you, can you please answer the following 6 questions? Is your internet connected? I think so. I'm sorry, I don't understand that. I have no idea why I just got onto the cable company. Oh, because it's a monopoly. Baseball is a bit of a monopoly. I never really thought of it as a monopoly because I could always start a baseball team. Hi, I'm David. Would you like to come play for the David Samson Penal League? We'll pay you $500. Oh, you make $500,000? Ooh, sorry. That's not a monopoly just because you can pay someone more. What makes a monopoly is something that quashes competition, squashes it so it can't happen. MLB got an antitrust exemption, which means that MLB is not subject to the antitrust laws, which means MLB can be a monopoly. Is that what it means? Let's get into specifics so you can have a working understanding, because you're reading articles, you're hearing people talk, and they don't get it. They don't get it because they don't care. You want to watch a press conference? Go watch Senator Ted. I can't remember his name. The guy with the beard who went to Mexico on vacation when his state was in trouble. I can't remember what his name is, but it doesn't matter. Ted something. Another guy named Howley. Another guy named Mike Lee or Tom Lee or Fred Lee or Dick Lee. They took to the podium and they said, we're going after MLB's antitrust exemption because we don't like that they pulled the All-Star game from Georgia, and we're going to show them that they're not above the law. Do they know that Bernie Sanders wants the MLB antitrust exemption to be gotten rid of, to be eliminated as well? Does that not show you that on the hard left and the hard right, everyone's the same? Coca told me something recently. Actually, I don't know what. Coca, were you the horseshoe guy? Are you the horseshoe guy? Yes or no? Okay. Do you know what a horseshoe is? A horseshoe is like an inverted U, except at the bottom of the U, the bottom of the horseshoe, they're really close together. His view is the way left and the way right are the bottom of the horseshoe, and they're really not as far apart as they think they are because they're all crazy as loons. Not all of them. Can I say all of them if it's 95% of them? Does that count? Remember, I'm not saying that Bernie Sanders is great. I'm not saying that people on the far right are great. I'm not saying they're crazy. Yes, I am. I'm not saying that I agree with any of them because I don't. So Bernie Sanders wants the antitrust exemption disappeared. So does Tom Lee, Mike Lee, Bruce Lee, Josh Howley, and that guy, Ted, Mark Wahlberg. What would happen if the MLB antitrust exemption got eliminated legislatively? Well, that's the only way it's going to get eliminated, because the antitrust exemption started with a Supreme Court ruling by the Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes in 19 blanking. I want to say 22. I don't know why that's in my head. I think that's right. And there was a lawsuit because there was a league that wanted to start and to compete against Major League Baseball called the Federal Leagues. And they felt like they couldn't compete, so they sued for antitrust. They ended up dropping the suit, except one team kept it going. And anyway, the Supreme Court said baseball is not interstate commerce, because to be subject to antitrust rules, you have to engage in interstate commerce, which means you have to conduct business in multiple states. His view was specific teams in MLB only conduct business in the state in which they're in. Therefore, it's not interstate commerce. Huh? That doesn't make much sense. If you're the Yankees and you go to play the Mets, that's not interstate. Hold on. If you're the Yankees and you go to play the Dodgers, oh no, they were the Brooklyn Dodgers. If you're the Yankees and you're going to play the Phillies, there we go. Interstate, you're going to Pennsylvania. But the judge didn't agree with that. Supreme Court made the ruling. And in our justice system, the concept of precedence is a very significant concept. When the Supreme Court issues a ruling, they are loath to reverse that ruling. There have been several cases since then. There was a Tolleson case. There was the Kurt Flood case. Several cases in the years since then where the MLB antitrust exemption was called into question, and the Supreme Court said the legislature has had an opportunity to change this, and if they want to, they can, but the Supreme Court is going to not change its precedent, and we're going to leave it be. There are three branches of government, right? Executive, president, legislative, House, Congress, Senate, and judicial. When the judicial branch makes a comment or makes a ruling, all the legislative branch has to do is say, you know what? We don't agree. We are going to pass a federal law the way bills are passed, and we're going to eliminate Tuesdays. No more Tuesdays. Done. All we need is it to get through the Congress, House, Senate, have the president not veto it, or if he vetoes it, do we have enough votes to override the veto? And then we got ourselves a law. Remember, Schoolhouse Rock. How a bill becomes a law. So the Supreme Court has said over the years, man, I don't know, the legislative branch has had all these opportunities. If they're complaining about this antitrust exemption, why don't they just take care of it? So Senator Ted Wahlberg says, we're going to take care of it ourselves. What a blowhard. He doesn't have the votes to take care of it. They've tried so many times, it's never gotten anywhere. The left has tried, the right has tried. And what would it mean if the antitrust exemption disappeared? It means that baseball would no longer have control over ownership, over relocation. It doesn't mean that all of a sudden there'd be pop-up leagues everywhere competing with Major League Baseball. Major League Baseball's antitrust exemption, from a practical standpoint, as an executive in baseball, what it really means is that we don't need anyone's permission to decide whether or not teams move. We just take 30 guys in a room, and if you get 23 to say yes, bing, bang, boom, you got yourself a relocation. Immunity from antitrust means that you can act in a way that's in the best interests of your company, and if you pretend not to be a monopoly, which baseball is not, then you are okay. What would happen if the exemption went away? Would teams all of a sudden start relocating? Just because the antitrust exemption goes away doesn't mean there's not a need for a vote of 23-7. But what it does mean is that if an owner doesn't get a vote of 23-7, he would have the right to use the court system to enforce his right as a franchise owner to play where he wants. Choosing owners, very mysterious. How does the commissioner choose owners? That's a whole nother show there, Coca. But the commissioner does choose owners. Sometimes he regrets his choice. Sometimes the owners get in the way of what the commissioner wants, and then the commissioner gets pissed, and all of a sudden the commissioner can get his revenge in other ways. But believe you me, the commissioner has more to do with who's an owner than the team selling the team. If the antitrust exemption goes away, that sort of power could get impacted, but there is no indication that it would. One of those senators said something that was just too funny that made me smile. This guy, Howley, he appeared on Tucker Carlson and he said, monopolies and liberty are not compatible. No corporation should be so big or so powerful that it can control the political process, that it can override the will of the voters. That statement, if that doesn't make you laugh, then you're not paying attention. Josh Hawley and his group are the main people who wanted to exactly do what he's saying you shouldn't do. He wanted to exactly override the will of the voters. What do you think January 6th was all about, folks? It was about overriding the will of the voters. It's got some nerve. How about the Minnesota Timberwolves, right? Minnesota Timberwolves, are selling their team to A-Rod. We talked about that yesterday. Anthony Edwards had the line of the year when asked about A-Rod. He said, I have no idea who A-Rod is. A-Rod then introduced himself to Alex on Instagram. That made me smile. One of the things that the senators said about antitrust is baseball shouldn't have the immunity because the NBA doesn't have the immunity. NFL doesn't have the antitrust immunity. Why should baseball? Well, baseball got it from the Supreme Court. Baseball has always enjoyed the antitrust immunity. But as I said, the legislative branch has always had a chance to change that. Glenn Taylor of the Timberwolves had some things to say about the antitrust immunity. He had some things to say about relocation. And I wanted to talk about the difference between the NBA and MLB. Glenn Taylor is concerned that people think that the team is going to move out of Minnesota. If A-Rod buys it, maybe to Seattle. We talked about it yesterday, maybe somewhere else. So Glenn Taylor took pains to say, the agreement is with the NBA. The NBA will make the decision if somebody's going to move or not move. The NBA will not approve the Timberwolves moving from here to Seattle. It is in the NBA's interest that in Seattle, a new team is formed. That will be an economic decision that's in the interest of all the NBA owners. Hey, Glenn, what are you talking about? There's only one way to guarantee the Minnesota Timberwolves don't move out of Minnesota, and that is if you put it in the purchase agreement with A-Rod or whoever buys your team. There have been plenty of relocations in the NBA. There's no guarantee that the Timberwolves wouldn't move to Seattle or somewhere else under a new owner. You can stop it in your contract with your potential owner. You've got the power. Don't blame it on the NBA. Don't hide behind the NBA. You can be better than that, Glenn. Relocations are much easier in the NBA and the NFL because there's no antitrust. They are subject to the Antitrust Act. Owners are funny, right? We say anything that will further our story and make us more popular and help our legacy. Glenn Taylor does not want to be blamed if the Timberwolves leave. So he says, hey, it's got nothing to do with me. It's all the NBA. No one wants to be blamed for anything they do, so they just pass the buck, pass it downstream mostly. Let me get back to the antitrust and close with this, if you don't mind. What happened yesterday with Ted and Josh and Tom and Mike and Dopey and Sleepy and Grumpy and Sneezy and Dopey is that they were using their political pulpit in order to draw attention to an issue that they think people give a tinker's damn about. There's nobody who cares about MLB's antitrust exemption, antitrust immunity. There's no one who cares that the NFL and the ML and NBA are subject to it. People care about their own lives, their own tax situation, their own take-home money. They care about their own sports teams, their own quality of life, their own city. Teams move all the time. Life goes on. Teams stay all the time. Life goes on. Stadiums get funded all the time. Life goes on. Stadiums don't get funded all the time. Life goes on. What's the moral of the antitrust story? It's a lot of smoke, not a lot of fire, and life will guaranteed go on.